WWE Money in the Bank 2022 is just around the corner now, so the speculation time is on who will win the Money in the Bank contracts this year for the men and women. And today on this video, I'm going to speculate the idea of some winners, 5 in total, maybe 6, and how they will cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase, when they will do it, and if they will become champion. It's fantasy booking time here on SCW. If you enjoyed this sort of thing, then please like the video, share with a friend as well, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let me know some of your fantasy booking ideas in the comments below on who, first off, you'd like to win the Money in the Bank and how you'd like to see them cash in the briefcase. So to kick things off, let's talk about one of the heavy favourites for the men's Money in the Bank ladder match this year. Let's talk about Seth freaking Rollins, and it's no surprise he is one of the heavy favourites this year, judging by his 2022 so far. He has got a lot to gain when you think about fantasy booking. He's just come off a recent 3-month rivalry with Cody Rhodes, who of course is out injured out for the long term, probably what, 6 to 9 months. Cody of course could return perhaps Royal Rumble time, win the Rumble, perhaps go on to WrestleMania to perhaps challenge for the championship. Could he be going against a Roman Reigns, or could he be going against a Seth Rollins, who, let's be fair, Seth also has a bit of beef with Roman Reigns because of course they fought at the Royal Rumble this year. Seth is the only person to get a victory over Roman Reigns in, well, the whole time that he has been the tribal chief. Yes, by disqualification, but Seth managed to get in Roman's head. So Seth was to become the Money in the Bank briefcase winner. It could make a lot of fun and a lot of sense going down the line. And I've got a few ideas of what I could do with Seth Rollins. In fact, 3 in total. Now, number 1, he could cash in at SummerSlam, the heist of the century, Part 2. We know we've got Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar in a last man standing match. And of course, with both men pretty much beaten down just like they were at WrestleMania 31, it could be the perfect opportunity for the heist of the century Part 2. Seth Rollins could cash in that briefcase, maybe get a pinfall victory over Brock Lesnar this time rather than Roman Reigns. That way the tribal chief still remains unpinned when he goes into a match further down the line against Drew McIntyre, of course, at Clash at the Castle. Seth could win the WWE Championship that way. He could simply prove he is in Roman's head and get the victory over Roman, or simply both men could be taken out of the equation and Seth just simply is the last man standing. Either way, this certainly could make sense for Seth to win the championship on Road 1. Road 2 involves Cody Rhodes a little bit and Roman Reigns still, because if Cody does return at the Royal Rumble, perhaps eliminates Seth Rollins last in the Royal Rumble match, Seth then could actually cash in on Roman Reigns on the road to WrestleMania, perhaps after the Elimination Chamber. That way, Seth Rollins then can go in as WWE Champion to go against Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. That's 2 methods we could get Seth versus Cody for at WrestleMania 39. But the last method we could do is that Seth keeps the contract, doesn't do anything until WrestleMania 39. We could get Cody defeating Roman Reigns, and then we've got the perfect moment. Cody finally wins the big one, wins the WWE Championship, only for Seth to cash in the briefcase at the main event of WrestleMania after Cody has won it and take that magical moment away. And then we get Seth Rollins becoming a WWE champion once again. Of course, then it would lead to a proper program going after WrestleMania once again with Cody and Seth Rollins. But certainly, I think in execution, all 3 could be a lot of fun. Personally, number 1 and number 3 are my favourites of the fantasy booking idea. From one of the favourites to the men's match, let's move on to one of the favourites now for the women's match. And, well, surprisingly a favourite. She can't even qualify at this point. She lost on Monday Night Raw last night to Asuka. I am talking Becky Lynch because, well, Becky Lynch right now, since losing the Raw Women's Championship, nothing is going to plan. She can't get a one-on-one rematch. When she does get opportunities, she gets outsmarted. She loses matches. She can't seem to get a one-upsmanship on anyone at this point. She can't even get herself in to Money in the Bank. She can't even win the 24/7 championship. Always played into her character so perfectly, as she's quite simply losing her mind at this particular moment. But certainly I think it could play nicely into the narrative of Money in the Bank. Now, first off, you're asking, well, how's she going to qualify? Maybe a last chance fatal 4-way, triple threat match, battle royal, you name it. She'll get a last chance opportunity to get herself into this match, and probably could even combine with the SmackDown losers as well, just so it's a fair playing field for that 7th spot in Money in the Bank. And once she gets in there, she gets through the back door, and of course then that's when she surprises everybody and she wins the briefcase. And it gives us two ideas of what can happen next. Now, one idea that can really play into the current character of Becky Lynch. She can finally get that one-on-one match with Bianca Belair, and of course she can try and cash it in just like the heels usually do at the most opportune moment, but Becky Lynch fails on the cash in, because so far in women's Money in the Bank history, no female has ever failed a cash-in attempt. It is 100% success rate to this point. A big name like Becky Lynch being the first not only doesn't really do much harm to her, it helps future people with failed cash-in attempts, because, well, if you look at, say, with the men's, John Cena was the first back in 2012. He called his shot ahead of time, and of course when he had his match on Raw 1000, it was a disqualification at the end of the day. He didn't win the championship, so it was the first big blown opportunity. And perhaps with some superstars since, they can look back and say when they failed a cash-in attempt, well, John Cena failed. It can be exact same for the ladies. Imagine if it was a Bayley or an Oscar. They're still big names, but a Becky Lynch right now is superstardom. It's a level above. If she was the first to fail a cash-in, it may protect others in future years. And someone like Becky Lynch right now, perhaps she's someone that would be impatient with the briefcase, so desperate to get her championship back, she could try and cash in on the same night, which is the wrong opportunity. After being in a ladder match, she could try the following night on Raw. It could be something where she does, doesn't hold back and wait for that real right opportunity. It's right in her mind, but it's not really the right opportunity. Another potential idea that you could do though, and it would be a successful cash-in, would not be the cash-in on Bianca Belair. Would be continue over the summer, and then perhaps maybe as we get towards Clash of the Castle, maybe draft time, maybe she goes over to SmackDown and cashes in on Ronda Rousey, because Ronda Rousey has been cashed in on before. Back in 2018, Alexa Bliss successfully cashed in Money in the Bank after winning it on the same evening and defeated Ronda Rousey. And of course that could start off the program then with Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey on the road to WrestleMania 39, because Becky Lynch could be the champion, Ronda Rousey could be the one chasing. They could keep the heel-face dynamic as it is, or they could even swap things around, because I'm sure fans love a cash-in for Money in the Bank, and if Becky is the one cashing in on Ronda, that could help kickstart a bit of interest in this rivalry, because no doubt it's the rivalry everyone wanted Ronda Rousey to come back into WWE to. We didn't get that. I do think some interest has dipped since, but I do think a cash-in like this would definitely spike that interest back up once again, especially if I build them for a good 3 to 4 months afterwards. I think it could be a lot of sense. And certainly, say Becky Lynch cashed in when it was draft night and Ronda was drafted to the other show and then couldn't get that championship back. She'd have to wait patiently up until maybe trying to get into Survivor Series for Raw vs SmackDown, or perhaps even the Royal Rumble to get her shot at Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. Certainly could make some interesting television. Next, let's talk about Drew McIntyre. Of course, he's qualified for Money in the Bank this year, and of course, if he's called his shot for Clash at the Castle, he wants to go against the World Heavyweight Champion. I'm guessing if it's a choice of Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, that Roman Reigns would be the one he would want to go against. And of course, if Drew McIntyre wins Money in the Bank, a lot goes in his favour, because he's called his shot now, but Roman Reigns can easily say, look, I'm on the island of relevancy. I'm not coming all the way to Cardiff, Wales to face you for that championship. You've got no chance of having the match there. You can call me out all you want. I have been taking time off. I come and defend my championship when I want to defend it. Well, if Drew McIntyre wins Money in the Bank, it is as simple as that. Drew McIntyre has the briefcase, can cash it in anytime he wants. He doesn't need to surprise Roman Reigns anymore. In fact, he can't surprise Roman Reigns anymore because Roman Reigns is never there. So he's going to have to call his shot ahead of time, and Clash at the Castle is the place he wants to do it. He can say, well, Roman, you're going to have to be there. I've got the contract. I'm cashing in. You've got no choice. You're coming over to the UK, where I'm from, and you're going to be facing me in the main event of Clash at the Castle. And that's where Drew McIntyre can cash in the briefcase and become the Universal Champion in front of a UK crowd. And of course, that would be then a crowning moment for Drew McIntyre, because of course, the other 2 times he's won the championship, of course, WrestleMania that first time was in an empty performance center. The pandemic had just started. The second time he won the championship was in the Thunderdome. So to actually win it in front of fans and even in front of the UK, I think would be very special, a crowning moment for Drew McIntyre, and that would solidify him once again as a top star in WWE. Next, let's talk about someone who's not qualified yet for Money in the Bank, but I hope that he will. He's the locker room leader of SmackDown. He's an honorary Uso. Of course, I'm talking about none other than Sami Zayn, someone who's been doing the work of the Bloodline. This could be so much fun with Sami Zayn as Mr. Money in the Bank. His reasoning for going into the match to begin with is simply to protect the Tribal Chief. He says, if I win Money in the Bank, then no one can sneak attack and surprise Roman Reigns. We've seen it happen so many times over the years. This is going to be a way that Roman is protected. And I tell you what, if we can do that over a length of time, maybe, just maybe, at some point, as a sign of loyalty and good faith, maybe we can have a bit of friendly competition. Maybe I could have a WrestleMania match against Roman Reigns. That would be great. Honorary Uso against the Tribal Chief. And of course, it sounds like a great idea, of course, from the Bloodline, because they love the idea that Roman won't have someone, you know, going after him immediately the second they've got the briefcase. They can manipulate Sami Zayn all throughout the time. And of course, there could be a few times that Sami Zayn as well could be in the ring with a vulnerable Roman Reigns, and perhaps that could lead to fan pressure of like, come on, would you cash in? Would you cash in? But Sami, of course, he's going to be loyal to the Tribal Chief. He's not going to cash in the hope that he will eventually get the match that was promised to him. And of course, when he eventually does get that match that's promised to him, he's beaten down. Perhaps maybe the cash-in is going to be done as soon as the bell rings. He's beaten down by the Bloodline. So for immediately, it's a fouled cash-in attempt, but at the same time, what it can transpire into, it can actually go into where Sami Zayn can get a spine and become a top babyface on SmackDown. The Sami Zayn we used to see in NXT, someone that put his body on the line, someone that fans could get behind. Sami Zayn had a great way of selling and telling a story, and I think him against the Bloodline could be a lot of fun. Now, would it be a WrestleMania match? I personally don't think it would be. I think that it would be something that could be done early next year, maybe towards Royal Rumble season. A show like that I think could work really well because you've got the Royal Rumble matches as well. It's a big show. Sami can get over further. Sami can have a really good match with Roman and just sort of just nearby miss out, because that's where Sami Zayn gets over more, usually in defeat, where fans can sympathise. We've usually laughed along watching him lose and seeing things go wrong for him, but how about we actually feel sympathy for the guy, seeing the fact that he's been manipulated for like 6 months after Money in the Bank, being told, yeah, you can get your friendly competition match, being screwed out of it, beaten down, only then to become the Sami Zayn of old that we saw in NXT. For me, I think it could be a beautifully told story if it was done correctly. And personally, for me, if Sami Zayn, the babyface like he was in NXT, could get really over, then maybe he could be within a shout at one point of becoming a top champion on SmackDown, and then truly, really being the locker room leader. Next then, let's talk about someone who's really benefited from Money in the Bank last year, and I think could really benefit with winning it this year. Of course, I'm talking about a fan favourite in Liv Morgan, because last year Liv just wanted an opportunity to get in the match, to get on TV, to do something in WWE, and fans really, when they returned back into arenas, got on side, really pushed for Liv Morgan. I felt WWE listened. It got her in the ladder match. She had a good showing. And look what she's gone on to do since. She's had a program with Becky Lynch that went on for day one as well, going for the Raw Women's Championship. She's been going for the Tag Team Championship. She's had a program against Rhea Ripley as well. And now I think we're getting towards Money in the Bank once again. She's not really at the level at the moment where I think she would outright win the Women's Championship in a normal singles environment. But sometimes a cash-in can be done so beautifully with a babyface doing it as well. It's almost a culmination of a moment going, she did it. We've supported this superstar for so long for them finally to get their moment, to win Money in the Bank and then win the championship. We saw it last year with Big E with the men's. I think it could be perfectly done with Liv Morgan in the women's division. And we say right now, she's had this program with Rhea Ripley sort of quietened off now since the last event, Hell in a Cell. But certainly, Rhea Ripley, the match with Bianca Belair at the moment is off because of the fact that Rhea looks to be injured at this particular moment. I'm not sure how long she's out for, but saying she does come back, she wins the Raw Women's Championship from Bianca Belair. I think she at the moment be the most suitable wrestler to be the next Raw Women's Champion at the moment in Rhea Ripley. Perhaps Liv Morgan could cash in on her and get that magic moment. I think that would be a true great babyface moment. I think people would really, really love it. The other idea you could do, as I said, Ronda Rousey, someone has been vulnerable before. You could do the cash in that way. I think fans, though, would still be on Liv Morgan's side rather than actually Ronda Rousey, so it kind of would be a weird dynamic with Ronda Rousey if you want to actually keep her babyface and turn Liv heel. I don't know if that dynamic would work as well, but certainly it's something you could go down if WWE wanted to. But personally for me, I prefer the natural babyface route. Just have where she would cash in on Rhea, and then you just feel that moment with over like 12 to 18 months, we got behind someone, and WWE listened. Not only did they get a push for a good solid 12 months, but then they were a believable winner for Money in the Bank. They won Money in the Bank, and then they cashed it in and actually won the championship. It is a simple, sometimes it's the most simple stories that can be the most beautiful. So that's the 5 there for you. I did tease you I could give you a bonus bit of content. Do you want it? Of course you do. Let's talk about someone that's not in Money in the Bank. Someone I thought that would be in the match, but instead is defending the United States Championship. Of course, I'm talking about Theory. So he's going to go onto that show. He's going to lose the US title to Bobby Lashley. We've got to find a way to get him in the match. And of course, well, up to now, in the last few months, Vince McMahon's been the one doing all the favours for him. But I don't know how much Vince McMahon will remain on TV at this particular moment after the most recent allegations. So it seemed to be the board of directors seem to be able to help him out on Raw this past week with the 3-on-1 gauntlet match for Bobby Lashley. So maybe the board of directors are also now the people that will see a lot of potential in Theory and maybe get him into the match. So that way it becomes 8 men going for it. Theory wins Money in the Bank, but of course it comes at a price because the pressure will be on Theory at this point. Will Theory live up to the hype? Because once he wins Money in the Bank, sometimes we see it with holders of the briefcase. They don't go on a winning run afterwards, they end up putting other talents over. And a lot of times the reason WWE does this is because they know that superstar can get their heat back the minute they cash in Money in the Bank. But maybe the pressure gets too much for Theory to the point that every time he looks to try and cash the briefcase in, he unsuccessfully even gets to cash the briefcase in. We get further down the line, becomes a long-term holder of that briefcase. We get to the Royal Rumble, we get to WrestleMania. Maybe WrestleMania would be a perfect place for Theory to actually cash in Money in the Bank and show that potential off. Maybe is someone that's cashing on Cody Rhodes, like we mentioned, like Seth did earlier, would be quite amazing. But for me, it's a story I've always wanted to see play out in Money in the Bank, and I think Theory would fit it properly because he's a young superstar. He's got bags of time on his side. He's got bags of potential. He's someone that could be the longest ever Money in the Bank holder, to the point that we get to where the contract will expire. You've got a full calendar year, and we've never seen a superstar wait 1 full year. It's to the point that maybe we can get 4 weeks or so before Money in the Bank where we know, well, you've not cashed in yet. You need to cash in, so I don't necessarily have to worry about looking over my shoulder worrying if you're going to be there or not. I know you're going to be there, because if you're not there, in a few weeks, you're not going to actually have a contract to cash in. It almost comes to the point that the strength goes to the champion and not the challenger, the one with the briefcase. So the nervous wreck that we've had of Austin Theory failing to cash in for all those months, we get down to the final few weeks, to the point that he actually has to cash in at the last possible minute at Money in the Bank. He has to cash in, whether it's the championship match, whether it's the championship match after the championship match, because that's the only time left before the next men's Money in the Bank ladder match, and they need to suspend it with a new contract above the ring within a few minutes later. I think it could be fun, fascinating TV, and I think at that moment, maybe Theory gets the job done, and at that point it's like a sigh of relief. We've got our champion. And what could even be another fun part of this is that, say for example, the men's Money in the Bank ladder match is at the same night. Maybe they want to cash it in on that vulnerable Theory right away. It could add some stories that lead into Money in the Bank and also quickly afterwards. So I think for me, it could be a really fun story to see play out on television. But certainly, as this, as well as the rest of the ideas I've done, I'd like to know what you think in the comments below. It's your turn to get involved. Who would you have as your winners? How would you have them cash in? What would be the ideas you'd put forward? What's been your favourite fantasy booking idea of the 6 I've put in front of you? I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, then of course please like it, share it with a friend as well. Word of mouth goes a long way as spreading the word of the channel of SCW here on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel as well. You can keep up to date with videos as they are released. Plenty of Money in the Bank content is on the way on this channel, including predictions will be coming up of the week of the show, and of course as well, collaboration time also going to be on the way of what is the greatest Money in the Bank ladder match of all time. But that's all from me anyway. Check out these videos on the side of your screen. You've been watching SCW here on YouTube. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.